Well, it's been a stewy, dewy day in Nigeria's political journey, like a hot pot of porridge spewing out its content. Now, the primaries across the country have defined what's to come in some states in the country. Godfathers against godsons, or godsons against godfathers. In-laws aren't outlaws, are they? Ouch! Some in-laws just got burnt. They do also have their tales to tell. Some just got really burnt. It's an awful smell in the kitchen for some, and a sweet, sweet steamy aroma for others. Now, what's the food like in your side of the kitchen? Stove on, pot on fire. We have our own party here, live with my co-chef, the Wedding World Nigeria. By the way, it's Nigeria at 58th. So whether they make it so awful, sometimes we really must also celebrate. So pot on fire, what's cooking? Also got the bit of that in my mouth, but all the same, it's political stew. And Sulaiman Alede, welcome. I once said here on the show that I'm yet to see that human who would say, I love fake news. How do you even recognize fake news? Now, that's a news style which you better watch out. Some Nigerian politicians now have a quick way of dispelling what's true after all. They yell on top of their voices, fake news, even when it's true. Now, so today, you must have heard loads of that. What's not fake, however, is that they're feeling the heat of what is, I really can't say. Now, you can watch us live online on the go at tvcnews.tv/live streaming. We're on live on YouTube, TVC News Nigeria Live, and youtube.com/political stew. You can also watch us live on Facebook, and remember to download the Political Stew app from the Google Play Store. We'll take a moment, we'll come back, and it's going to be a party all the way, but we have something really interesting to discuss that is burning. Well, Lagos has been in the news, and by now you should know why Lagos has been in the news thrice. They've moved their primaries, talking about the All Progressives Congress. And we did reach out for some of them, and you just won't believe it. Less than an hour to showtime, the calls came that really they can't make it. But again, the show must go on with or without these great people who think, so much of this primaries. But again, I think the big news has been going back and forth whether the primaries has been concluded or whether it's been cancelled. You get to hear one other story from Mr. Nabena saying, well, he's unaware of any kind of cancellation, even though the story you get into here from here in Lagos is something on the contrary. But towards 2019 elections, extra in the primaries, Chima Nnaji joins us. He's an attorney at law. Good to have you join us.
Good evening, and it's my pleasure.
Happy Independence.
Same to you. Thank you.
Well, 58 great, years for our nation, and many are still talking about what it is like to for us as a nation. But again, let's look at this big journey which many politicians have decided to define, and that is 2019. And to start with, we saw all of those, movement from one political party or the other. But some other people still think that after the primaries, we're likely to see more movement. What's your thinking? Let's start with that. Do you think that after primaries, we're likely to see many also maybe go back or move away from where they
well, there will still be some movements. Going back, I don't know, because if it was very hot the other side and they tried to look the other way and couldn't achieve their desire, it might be suicidal to go back. Except there is some value the place they left have placed on him or that particular individual. So going back, he will be accepted, but he may not be trusted so much anymore.
Time was, Dr. Nnaji, when we heard this, this word in our political lexicon, automatic ticket, and many had thought that such movement will grant them such, automatic tickets. But has that been what we witnessed lately?
Well, you see, the level of political consciousness has escalated, and let me just say, the conflict resulting from the contention for various political positions has also escalated, because there's so much joblessness, unemployment, the times are hard, the businesses are collapsing, so politics appears to be the main source of income for those who are able to scale through. So, it's a contest that is mutually exclusive. If you get it, the other person will lose. So the battle is so internecine that even some people are ready to kill. So that is why it is no longer possible for people to accommodate others. If you are coming for automatic ticket, you must come with such a value that both electoral value, war chest, financially speaking, and you may also have the capacity to stew up some violence if there is need to fight the other party.
So in our politics, all of those three which you highlighted, talking about, money, and also talking about your sometimes, well, as much as it sounds awful, your nuisance value, having your own people who can actually be troublemakers and give you some...
It can also be suicidal in their daring, capacity if there is any conflict.
Now let's speak a little bit about what is happening now, the campaigns. First, I want to look at it from the side of the electorates. I live, for instance, in a community where I know my lawmaker, and I tried as much as I can to talk to my lawmaker on behalf of the people to see how he can influence some developments in that area. And never for once did that lawmaker picked a call or replied a message. But now we woke up and he's all and about with his posters and out campaigning. Now the people are saying, you better tell us where you stand, whether you're for us or against us. Do you think the level of awareness now in terms of the electorates having to know where to put their ballot is seeing some form of improvement?
Like I said, the level of political awareness is high. But whether the electorate possesses the kind of power that goes with democracy in other climes is a debatable issue. For the simple reason that there are many ways of getting to political positions in this country.
Without the electorate?
Yeah, well, you can, you can drive past them. Okay? You just drive past them. You can even dust them when you are passing. So there's still room for that if you have the machinery. And then there are also some instances where you can make what looks like a show, that you are popular with the voters, but just like some people would say, okay, you may be engaged in a particular profession, but that's not where you make your money. So that impression you have with the voters may not necessarily be what gives you the vote, because you are cutting corners. So that is the problem that we really have, and that is why there is no accountability, because the loyalty is not to the people, because the people do not ultimately determine who becomes what. But you can key up, okay, there's the popular saying that it is not really at the ballot box that you determine the winner. It is at the counting, because that is where you can put figures. And the number of hours spent on the field queuing up will be rubbished. So the question is, how do we effectively manage that area of counting so that the votes can count, not the counting in the counting process?
Not the counter.
The counter
Counting
is the one
in the
that
counting
can count
process.
himself in by putting figures. So the votes will no longer count. But the counter will now be the one that puts the figures.
You know, the elections proper will have, will see it go into the electronic voting system with the card reader and, of course, the voter card, which is also electronically linked to the card reader. Now, but for primaries, it seems that we're still very much in the old order where we have, people being chased or being threatened or being, having their ballot boxes being stuffed. What's your take about the direct primaries, which the APC had adopted in some states, not all states?
Let me start by saying that I am a very strong advocate of electronic process in the voting. It's highly depersonalized, provided there are the safeguards, some safeguards that will be put in place to ensure that hacking and some other, interruptions in the process are checkmated. Now, when you have the APC give out directive that it was going to be primaries, that their primaries will be direct, and then along the line, some governors came and agitated for certain obvious reasons that there could also be room for indirect, electoral process in the primaries. And they were accommodated. That was a recipe for confusion. Yes, because you can't approbate and reprobate. But that is their party decision, and that is why you are seeing a lot of problems in different locations. And then it depends now on how strong the godfather in a particular location is to be able to effectively contrive the circumstance under which a winner will emerge without so much ceremony. So the question now is, in some areas, in fact, in some states, there's some candidates said they didn't know where the voting was taking place. They are aspirants, okay? And it's all in the press. So he didn't, a contestant did not know where the election was taking place.
Isn't that amazing? Because
so
that's also part of the news we heard from Delta State.
That is politics for you
in Nigeria. As laughable, Dr. Nnaji, as laughable as it may seem,
yes.
What does that tell you? As a politician, you don't even know where the venue is that in an election that you're partaking in.
You know, if there is a level that you have to evolve to effectively mesh into the political,
I really can't hold this
Otherwise,
back.
they will just be laughing at this one. He's just jumping up and down like
you are an aspirant. You're taking part in an election, and you don't even know the venue.
Maybe you may not even have known that day was. I mean, it's inexplicable, but it's a reality. So that is the Nigerian politics, and that means minus one of the contestants. So if there were two,
I'm sorry, I've never had a live on live
so if
television.
there were two, then it's all over.
2019, the road to 2019 has actually, spewed a lot of things, unprecedented.
Yes.
And that's one of it. And the other one is, let's talk about Lagos. There are some candidates that the electorates really are confused as to where they belong. In one election, we see them contesting in another state away from Lagos State. And when they lose, they quickly run back to Lagos and say, no, we're still here. How does that work in a country like Nigeria, where we have people who move from state to state, I can just willy-nilly just choose any state. I can come to Enugu or to Anambra, and when I do lose, I come back to Lagos.
Well, I think that it's not a question of somebody just wishing it and embarking on such a journey, so to speak. It is that there is an opportunity, open for him to exploit. So if many people would like to fly in helicopters, but if they cannot even buy a bicycle, they will just watch the one that is flying over them. But if you have an opportunity, you would like to exploit it. So, and that is also perhaps one of the good thing about having a good godfather, a strong godfather. I think you remember that the main author of The Godfather said that the godfather never sleeps. He's always awake. While even the godson or godchildren are having a good nap. So I think it's a question of having the opportunity. Otherwise, you find that it is inconceivable that somebody would even have the temerity to think of such. But I think it's one of these fallouts of having somebody who say, okay, just go and try that place. Let's see whether we can extend our tentacles. It's a question of having expansion of your political dominion, the firmament of control. That's what it is. If it is not working, then you better come here because I trust you that you are still my, one of my loyal followers. So that is, with time we will get over these things.
One other interesting state in, leading up to this primaries or 2019 is Imo State. And I want you to, let's talk more about the politics from the southeast of Nigeria, specifically in Imo. And before then, we saw the bickering of some heavyweights in that state and how it's been all over the place that the governor had anointed. These are words taken off the scriptures,
yes.
And politicians have actually used them, pretty well in Nigeria.
Yes.
So has anointed his son-in-law, and now the news coming out of Imo with the results, whether accepted or rejected, there's a result, and the result isn't looking good towards the anointed one. What does this mean, in our political reading as we move on?
You see, the loss of trust in the system is part of the reason why people say, okay, let's keep it in the family. Okay, if you have the might to impose a candidate, you say, I better do so. My wife, my son, or maybe my son-in-law or something like. You have the classical case in Imo State. There have been serious agitations, among APC members in Imo State, not just at this primary, but since the man had contrived the circumstance in which he continually projected that his son-in-law put him in a position, and his own daughter, the Commissioner for Happiness, I don't know how much happiness they are spewing out in Imo, but I think that was the first time I heard that a whole ministry will be dedicated to happiness, whatever the definition was given to that. It's like making the family the central point, the center point for political activities in Imo State. And people said, no, this cannot happen. And that became so clear because he wasn't going to be governor anymore. So there's space. So this question of there's no space in government house will not play in this instance. So I think the people of Imo State rejected that, vehemently. And the way the governor also appeared to have carried on in a rambunctious manner, in a manner of what can you do if you don't like it, you go to hell if you don't join me. And even collected all the local government chairmen and whatever in one day and put them in one place, and they were all singing like members of the same choir, that this is the only man we volitionally put them. But you could see that it was a contrived situation, and the real Imo people were agitating in the social media, they were agitating in other fora, So that is exactly what, maybe in this instance, that was the protest that probably intended to humiliate him and tell him this is not a banana state, let us speak.
Well, even though it's not a banana state, it would seem as if many politicians have actually stepped on banana peels in this, and it's not looking good in so many states, in the country. Some of the heavy names and heavyweights who moved out of some other political parties didn't have it, pretty cool and calm and collected in these political parties. Now, we'll come back to talk about Lagos, but I actually wanted us to get to a guest who will join us via Skype to tell us perhaps on what exactly is happening. I hope you're there. You can hear me. If you are, Jermaine Sanwo-Olu, social commentator and convener, Diaspora PR, joins me via Skype. Tell us, you've been in Lagos and you witnessed what went down in Lagos. Tell us what exactly you saw earlier today at the APC primaries.
Well, thank you very much, Lai, for having me on your program today. I was I'm in Lagos, I'm not in the UK right now, and I went to a poll center whereby APC members like myself had to register their votes for their preferred candidate. It was exceptional. I'm sure by my surname you already know who I'm standing with. It was, of course, Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, who I believe is the candidate who can give us a new Lagos, one that has a listening government and one that is also very inclusive. So this was a place we went to, was around Ward E2 in the Lagos Island District, and it was packed. A lot of people came out en masse. It was totally crowded. Your people were, TVC was there, and also our sister television stations were there, and it was fabulous. People were rooting for their candidate, being a proper Lagosian, through and through, Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, and they were so excited about him being there, him casting the first vote and saying, you know what, I'm ready, I'm committed to take Lagos to greater heights. So when I saw that, it was mind-blowing. As in his words, he said, this is totally incredible. And I thought it was phenomenal. It's totally like groundbreaking in Nigerian history, whereby you see a candidate who is loved, who is accepted, and who is welcomed by the people. So, of course, my UK blood was boiling in the sun, but it was loads of fun.
Well, anyway, Jermaine, I'll come back to you because I think the sound is a little bit muffled. I know from the look of things that you are a supporter of the Sanwo-Olu group. We'll try as much as possible to also get to the Ambode group. But again, when we come back to you, we'd like to know whether if truly there was a primaries. I'm trying to look at a statement from Nabina, who is the acting, spokesperson of the APC, and he's denying knowledge of cancellation of Lagos governorship primaries, even though we're getting to hear right here in Lagos by those who came all the way from the national of APC that it's been cancelled. What does this tell you? Because now it looks really slippery for those who can actually attest to what has happened. The spokesman is saying, I'm unaware, but those who came from Abuja, they're saying it's cancelled.
Well, I heard the news on different platforms, including TVC, and not once, not twice. Then even on social media, it's a wash. Perhaps he may be honest that he may not have had it. Perhaps where he was, probably he didn't have communication, or even haven't had it, he needed to confirm that, because it could be incredible to him that such a situation could arise. Or even if it is believable to him, he probably had not received instruction on how to relate to the public what the position is. So these are, because he needs to clear before he comes. So
these are all possibilities.
Yeah,
because
that's an intelligent way of avoiding problems for himself.
Because he was able to say something on the Imo election, to say that of Imo has been cancelled.
Exactly.
But he's unaware about Lagos.
Well, this is also politics.
Earlier on, I started by saying politicians, especially in Nigeria, they've taken this, the style. Almost everything and anything is now termed as fake news, especially when it doesn't sit pretty well with you. How have you been following, such pronouncements from camps of politicians who quickly, scream out and say fake news?
It appears that Nigerians are very, very good at copying. Very, very good, but not so much about the good ones, good things. We copy things that are convenient to us to explain our failures or some our inconsistencies. I think this fake news something gained currency with Trump. And it appears that Trump himself is a Nigerian politician, so to speak, because it sits well with what we experience down here to explain away serious things by simply saying fake news, and
it goes away.
It becomes easy for you to just walk away and make it look as if the next person talking is foolish. So I think that is a very shortcut. Many politicians these days are not deep. They are not deep, intellectually and otherwise. And that is the problem we have. Have you heard any serious politician talking about issues? People will tell you, I know I have the capacity to deliver because I have shown it before. What did you show before? So now the circumstance may have changed. What are you going to do to adapt to the realities of today? Nobody is discussing issues. He's talking about the other people is this, this, and when I get there, I will do better. What will be the measure? So people are no longer deep. And unfortunately, too, the voters, I was telling somebody the other time that democracy as a concept that we know in political science is in jeopardy, because the presumption was that the electorate will be enlightened. They will know their rights, citizens' rights, and obligations were taught in civics, even at lower level in the primary school. Today, you don't have such things. So people just graduate. They don't even know their rights. And hunger is not helping matters, because when you look at the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, human beings are at the level of the primary level of what am I going to eat? And when you are at that level, you don't think. If you think, you don't reason. Every animal thinks. It's only human beings that reason. And the reasoning is a higher form of thinking, because that's where logic and other things will have to come in. Now, you have very few people at that level of human functioning. And so it is easy to tell, I will build you roads, and everybody will shout, yay. Let me tell you, if you go to Joe Legba to do campaign now, and you are telling them about how to fix the GDP and make sure that foreign exchange, you are talking nonsense. Then somebody comes and says, everybody, yeah. That is you. You just come down to their level and music will be blowing. At the end of the day, they will vote for you. And these are the ones that will come to vote. Because the ones that will reason with you that you are talking about GDP and petroleum resources, they are not going to come out to vote. So that is the jeopardy to which democracy is facing now. And that is the world over.
We'll come back and explore more on that. If you just joined us as Political Stew, we'll take a moment and we'll return shortly. Welcome back. A lot happening, cancellation or acceptance, and pretty much going on within the APC in its primaries across the country. News coming in from Adamawa is pretty much there. And of course, from the PDP, Kogi West is also in the news. You better find out what exactly is happening from that side of town and see who's been able to clinch the ticket in the PDP for Kogi West. And of course, well, I still have with me Dr. Chima Nnaji, who is an attorney at law looking at issues as we move towards the 2019 election. And of course, Jermaine Sanwo-Olu, who is also of the Sanwo-Olu campaign organization and a political analyst joining us. I'll come back to you pretty fast before we lose this connection, Jermaine. You did say there was an election because now we're getting to hear contrary stories that it was hijacked. And what we saw wasn't what the party officials from the national, headquarters of the ABC were mandated to come do. Was that the situation here in Lagos today within the APC?
Well, I will say in Lagos Island there was an election, and you can get from the reports by senators, members of House of Representatives, and most especially the Lagos State Deputy Governor. She actually went there, and the reporters and other sister stations were reporting it, showing her voting and telling Nigerians and Lagosians that she's standing with the party. And also the Lagos State APC chairman, Mr. Tunde Balogun, also just put in a report, which I think was published on the Punch online, was that it's actually held, and he's going to report about the results shortly. So credible sources, people of integrity throughout the party are saying that this really happened. And we have a few people from the head of the National Working Committee, Mr. Berry, with all due respect, said that it didn't happen. If there was any hijack in this process, was that it was hijacked by the people. The people took ownership of this election. They went out on the streets, they were counted one after the other, and they stood behind the candidate that they believed could deliver a better Lagos, a cleaner Lagos, a newer vision for Lagos. Not just a new vision, but one that realigns with the old one, that is a strategic one that would see Lagos return to the roadmap of progress, of growth, and of prosperity once again. And that was Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu. He did an exceptionally well from the reports we are hearing, and we hope that those results will be announced so that the world can know that change has truly come to Lagos.
Well, I think one more thing before we let you go. If your party or your side is saying that there was an election and the other side of the governor, Akinwumi Ambode, they also came up with their own, as well as Clement Ebri, saying categorically there wasn't an election. How does this sit well for those who are not members of the APC? Does this show a divided party in the state?
Well, the APC is not divided and will never be divided. We are one united party. Maybe we have differences, but those differences can be resolved in-house. Now, they may have their views of what they consider as an election not holding in certain areas. But if you ask the Lagosians, if you ask people on the road who saw people lining up in drones, as I saw in what E2 in Lagos Island, supporting Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, and you saw the report on social media and all over the place, you would see that elections really held. Even some members of the PDP were surprised and saying that, oh, wow, these people actually came out on a working day. So this is quite interesting. This is something that hasn't happened in the history of Lagos. And it's setting a precedent that if you are given the opportunity to serve our great nation or our great state, you do it well, because people, you are only first amongst equal. There are people who are capable to do the great work. So leaders are going to have to give more. Leaders are going to have to deliver more. They're going to have a strategic vision. Your former, my co-presenter or the person on the show said something that, most politicians just give out, fake and empty promises. But I can guarantee you that Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, a man I've known growing up, who has mentored me, always keeps his promises. He's going to.
Okay, I think it's a fine place. It's a fine place for us to let you go now, because definitely I shouldn't be expecting anything contrary other than what you say now to highlight the credentials of your candidate. Many thanks for speaking with us on Political Stew, Jermaine Sanwo-Olu. And coming back to you, Dr. Nnaji, the issues here, I think we must also call a spade a spade. Politicians, even when they're divided, they look you in the eye and they tell you, we're not divided. I don't know another word for division if this vibe we're getting from the APC in Lagos isn't what it is. What do you get? At the earlier part of the day, one would have thought that Clement Ebrey and his team should have spoken out too early, not until the results started trickling in. So what does this tell you about a process where they waited till the results started coming out before they brought out their statement that, hey, wait a minute, we still have the documents or the materials here with us?
Well, I think from what I heard the gentleman say on television, even on TVs, I mean, that Clement Ebrey, that they were waiting for certain things from national headquarters of their party. And it didn't come that early, that it was around 5 or so.
They've always waited. 3 times they postponed this.
Yes.
And the last time that they waited, they were also waiting for materials.
But what the sum total of the situation now is that even if there is a rebuttable presumption that election or primaries took place in some, even if all, locations of Lagos, that was not acceptable to the National Working Committee. Just in the same manner that if you are not properly before a court, even if you are physically there, the court will say you are not here. Even though you are disturbing some air that is physically, somebody can touch you, but you are not there because you are not properly there. So if it was not the election that they thought should be, they were sent to do, to hold, that took place, then they had the right to, the powers perhaps under the constitution to say this is not the election. And if the national party, national executive of the party accept that or had given them that authority, then it will be upheld. It appears they may have to repeat the elections. However, it wouldn't have ordinarily been an exercise in futility, because sometimes if a dog wants to demonstrate, it will just open its mouth and show you that I still have some teeth. So if you see the canines, even if it has not beaten anybody, I'm not too sure that if you are not familiar with that dog, you go and put your hand to test it. So perhaps, this, political showmanship, so to speak, but, talking, frankly, I believe that even though somebody yesterday told me that the train had left station, and I said that you can recall even a plane that has left the airport, I think the party in Lagos should be able to find an intelligent way of resolving this impasse. There's no doubt that the APC transport is driven by Tinubu as it is today. Any other person perhaps might be one of the passengers, so that when you get to your station, you can bolle, so to speak. But it behoves the driver to tell the passengers, please stay calm. Everybody knows who is on the wheel, and there is no contesting that. So I believe that there should be an intelligent way of, yes, if you have beaten somebody with one hand, you take the other one and accommodate. Because now it is obvious where the power is located. You understand what I mean? Because the person who is governing now was essentially brought in by him. You understand? And that person who cannot kill you cannot save you. It's a simple fact. Just like when you go to a doctor on the surgery table, the man could finish with you. But you went there to be for surgery to be saved. So if he does otherwise, you are dead. So why would you want to contest the power of life and death over on his surgical table?
It comes back to what I highlighted starting off this show, and it has to do with the talk of fake news. First, we started hearing all of this, bickering in hushed tones in Lagos. No, there's no fight. He's still the anointed one. He's still very much in contention. He's the sole candidate. He's going to get it, get an easy ride into 2019. But it turned out that it wasn't so, and we saw that world, press, briefing, which some, in the local parlance, I don't know, there's beef called beef the meat, and some say world press beefing, whatever that means. But that paid, laid, everything out to the people that truly all is not well. And I'm asking you so that you can expatiate more on the possibility of actually having it resolved, which you highlighted. You said there still can do a U-turn in all of this.
Politics is the art of the possible. And there's nothing impossible in politics. You understand what I mean? Interest is paramount.
But some have also, sorry to cut you there, Dr. Nnaji, some have also highlighted by saying that it has gotten to a point where if you back down, you're finished. So what's best is for all parties to soldier on and slog it all out.
I don't think so. It is, there is a world of difference between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence is a capacity. It's just it's a potential. But wisdom is applied knowledge. You acquire knowledge by experience. And that knowledge has been tested, applied, and you know the one that is possible and the one that is not possible, and under what circumstance. Political sagacity is in the domain of wisdom. You don't listen to what people are saying because there are very many interests. If you, as the father, allow so much commotion in your family, ultimately, it will be on you that you are incapable of managing your situation. But if you beat your son or your child, you have demonstrated that you are the one that is in control. You don't have to kill that person to show so. Having beaten that person and the heavens did not fall, anybody who is saying that if you allow that person to come and take meal again in the house and all that, it doesn't make sense.
But again,
so I understand the sentiment. This is politics.
And the sentiment.
Politics is a game of who gets what, when, and how.
Absolutely.
So agitations will come for people who think that if you remove this person, maybe my coming up might be possible.
Now by today's primary, which has been cancelled by the NWC, it would mean that there is a deeper cut now, because you saw on live television where the deputy governor stood, and you saw that some of the commissioners and cabinet members were.
No doubt.
So how do you resolve? Because if you kept on telling me, Sulaiman, I'm for you, and I go all out at the 11th hour, and I see you, turn your back on me, and you say we want to discuss.
This is even the more reason why this problem can easily be resolved. First and foremost, this election perhaps was known to the hierarchy of the leadership in Lagos that it probably will not be acceptable by the national body, the circumstance, but it has been used to demonstrate control. I don't want to, like somebody, a boxer was confronted by somebody, he went and be hitting the wall. He wasn't fighting the man. He was telling people, and if this man could be doing this to the wall, do you know what will happen to you if he decides to use one of his fists on you? Do you understand what I mean? And the guy now knelt down and pleaded that he didn't know he was a boxer. I don't know whether you get my drift.
I do.
There is nothing that is impossible. And it is now even more possible and more germane for peace, truce to be reached in the interest of the party, Lagosians, and the leadership of the party, and everybody.
Let's close this on
I
this.
think it is advisable to look at that option and not think that it cannot be resolved. It's a win-win situation.
And if that doesn't happen?
Well, if that doesn't happen, well, we know what happened to small motor and trailer, and it could be a situation of accident. Somebody will be bruised, or there might be some little casualties, but more on somebody or one party. So,
Dr. Nnaji, it's a fine place for us to leave it, but you won't leave yet because we really have to do some, justice to what we have today, being Nigeria at 58, whether they have their primaries or not, whether they...
After all, we're in a kitchen.
Whether the small motor
Yes.
hits a big motor, we'll come back and have a meal here on Political Stew. We'll take a moment and we'll be back. Actually, I do this a lot in the house. You have those people who actually stroll in the kitchen and they just pick on food. Sometimes if you do the frying of, dodo, plantain, whatever you want to call it, you just pick at it and before you know it, you're full before you go out. Some politicians, they do that. They eat everything in the kitchen before they come out. So this is not a national cake, but this is Nigeria at 58. And I'll tell you a story behind all of this. Over 2 decades ago, I started my broadcasting career and I was in school back in the day at the University of Benin. And a friend of mine who's always been a friend till date, her and her husband were a very great fan of mine. And she said, so I'm going to do something for you on Political Stew. And she did this FOC. Well, Africa and I, we actually went to school together. Good to see you. And she's doing this specifically and because this is what she's into. So after you graduated, you started doing all this?
Definitely, yes.
Tell us about this.
This is basically fruit art, something new, because with the trend, people say they're not into cakes. They want to take something different to keep
not me.
to stay healthy.
Yes.
And so we had to look for a way to come up with something, and we brought up the fruit art, in a way where you can actually cut a fruit in place of a cake to celebrate any of your function. So it's quite like a bright idea for those that are trying to watch their weight.
So, well, I'm not watching my weight. I'm actually watching how many gray that comes on my, beard. But all the same, thank you. So, what's your business called? The Wedding World?
The Wedding World Cakes.
So, you do this for people?
Oh, definitely we do.
Very creative.
Tomorrow's my birthday.
Of course, I know you're joking.
My daughter celebrates her birthday when she feels like having cakes. So when I feel like having this, I think I should put a call across and say, okay, I need cakes because tomorrow is my birthday. Thank you. I think, we're going to have this for Mr. Nnaji live and set. Perhaps maybe you should have a taste of your fruit art.
Let me have the grape and a little bit of...
So while we do this,
watermelon.
a little bit of watermelon. While we do this, the crew will all have a bowl pretty much later when we're done. And this is just to celebrate Nigeria at 58. Well, there was this skit I watched on on the internet, and it has to do with questions being asked Nigerians how old Nigeria is now, and you won't believe it. Some still think that Nigeria is 50, or some say 52. Just a few people got it right that Nigeria is 58. It tells you a lot about what is going on in our everyday life. History about Nigeria is being lost, and many people still don't know anything about history. Dr. Nnaji, I think we're going to cut this. This is not the national cake, but it's a cake to So I want you to help us do this, and I think you'll join us. And so we'll say Happy Independence, Nigeria, from all of us here on Political Stew at TVC. Well, it's a wrap on the show. Many thanks for watching. I do hope that next week, Tuesday, we'll have a ball talking about what exactly is happening in Lagos State and so many other places. Whatever it is, some say perhaps that's why you should have just brought ogbono soup, because it's slippery now in our political space. Well, we'll see you next week.
Indeed.